knock on doors for them, that you give them money, that you tell your friends. I tell everyone that I talk to when I'm talking about my re-election, you need to tell 10 of your friends to go vote, and you need to tell them to tell 10 of their friends to go vote, and that's how we get people elected. What happened here 2 years ago was a miracle. I know you call it the Magic Valley miracle. You had real conservative people going against the establishment. The other side had more money, they had more people calling on the phone, they had all those things, but what they didn't have was the effort that groups like this were putting together. So it's so important that you work together to make sure that they get reelected. Let me tell you what I've been doing as your Attorney General. I got elected 2.5 years ago, and it's been a tremendous honor to represent you as your Attorney General. I ran for Attorney General because I believe that Idaho was not being aggressive enough in the way that we were fighting the federal government. We were not being aggressive enough in the way that we were defending the cases in the court, and we were not being aggressive enough in ensuring that bureaucrats in Boise were actually following the law, were actually reading the law, reading the statutes, reading the regulations, and that they weren't actually following the law. They were doing whatever they wanted to do. I have 220 people who work for me. I have 120 lawyers and 100 staff. And I have told each and every one of the people who work for me that our number one duty is to represent the people of Idaho, not to represent the bureaucracy of Idaho. And we do that every single day. I still represent the state. I represent the state in the courts, I represent the state of Idaho, but I believe you are the state, and my job is to make sure that I'm representing you when I'm representing the state of Idaho and doing the things that we need to do. We've made some major changes, and I'm not going to tell you everything that we have done, but I will tell you where you can find out everything we have done. I'm going to leave this here with Glenita. This actually is a way for you to get the newsletter. If you use this QR code, you can get our weekly newsletters, and every week we tell you everything that we're doing. If you go to our website, you can see all the newsletters that I have, our weekly newsletters for the last 2.5 years. And you can find out a lot of the things that we're doing, and some of the things that I'm telling you today, and some of the things that I'm not gonna have a time to say. But I'm gonna start with one thing, and I think it's important. We saw what happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks after the death of Charlie Kirk. We saw young people, old people, recommitting themselves to fighting for truth, for justice, and for God. And we need to understand that we are in the middle of a fight, not between right and left, not between blue and red, but between good versus evil. And we need to understand that as a state. And it's important for you guys to elect people who understand that as well. So on my first day as your Attorney General, I got sued by the Satanic Temple. And they wanted to make sure that they sued me on my first day because they knew that I was going to be a pro-life Attorney General. And they wanted to make a case against the state of Idaho, claiming that the state of Idaho's laws against abortion violated their religious rights. And I want you to hear this very, very closely. They said that the state of Idaho was violating their First Amendment rights because abortion was their sacrament. Think about that and how disgusting and how sick that is. They also said that the state of Idaho was violating the 13th Amendment because forcing a woman to have a baby and not letting her have an abortion was the same thing as slavery. So those were the two claims that they made before the court. They were claiming that their abortion rights were greater than the right to life because we were forcing them to violate their religious rights. We took them to court and we fought them hard. And one of the proudest moments that I've ever had in politics is anybody from Boise knows the Idaho Statesman, they hate my guts. But on the front page of the Idaho Statesman, after we beat them in court, they had to put the headline, that Labrador defeats Satan. They then appealed, and they went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit is the most liberal circuit in the United States. But we made some legal arguments, and even in the Ninth Circuit, we were able to win. And we sent out another press release where we said Labrador defeats Satan again. So, but even though it can be a little bit funny, it's also a little bit disgusting what they were arguing, what they were saying. And it's important for us to know that this fight that we're in, it's between good and evil. That the fight that we're in, it's important for us to have warriors that will fight for us and will fight for our rights, for our liberties, and for our future. And it's important that they understand that they can't be playing footsies all the time with people that are evil. But we also need to understand what happened over the last couple of weeks. Just because I'm a strong warrior doesn't mean, I always use the phrase that I'm a conservative, but I'm not angry about it. I don't need to be disagreeable. I like to have a smile on my face. Sometimes people don't like that. They think that I'm too nice when I'm fighting. And I think I want to be courageous and forceful in my arguments, but I can be friendly to people that disagree with me. And I think it's important for us as conservative warriors to understand that we can gain more people following us depending on our demeanor. And something I saw that I thought was really important, if you watched during the funeral of Charlie Kirk, there was something really, really important that happened. And I think most of you noticed this. Who was sitting with Trump for a long time? Elon Musk. They had been friends. They had worked together, and they started fighting each other, and they had a difference of opinion on some important issues. But they both realized that it was so important for Charlie Kirk to figure out who are the people that can be on your side. Not the people that will agree with you 100% of the time, but the people that will agree with you most of the time. And they decided to work together and to do the things that are necessary to fight the evil on the other side. So I encourage us to do that as conservatives. I encourage us to look for people that can work with us most of the time. And so I was in Washington, D.C. for 8 years. I'm actually one of the founding members of the House Freedom Caucus. I was one of 9 members in Washington, D.C. And every time we had 40 members of the House Freedom Caucus. They were the only ones that were willing to actually join the caucus. Or frankly, sometimes there were some people that we didn't want on the caucus because we thought they would actually create problems for the caucus. But we also had some friends that we called caucus adjacent. They were people that were not going to be members of the caucus. We either didn't want them in the caucus, or they didn't want to be members of the caucus, or they weren't maybe conservative enough to be in the caucus. But we knew that we could rely on them on some of the important fights that we were fighting in Washington, D.C. So it's important for us to also identify those people. But the role and the assignment that all of you have is to make sure that these people that you got elected 2 years ago, that was such a wonderful thing that you did in the Magic Valley, that you do everything possible to make sure that they get reelected, because we need them back in the House and in the Senate. And we need to make sure that those numbers are growing, that they keep growing, and that we have more and more people that are willing to defend our liberties and our future. A few of the other things that I've been doing as your Attorney General is I've been fighting a lot. The legislature 5 years ago passed an important law. It was the first state in the union that passed a law preventing boys from playing in girls' sports. And I thank them for doing that. And the Attorney General of Idaho at the time had actually issued an opinion to the legislature. It was my predecessor, the person that I defeated in the primary. He issued an opinion to the legislature that that law was unconstitutional. And then he had the duty to go to court and defend that law in the court. Guess what Exhibit A was of the lawsuit by the people who were opposed to that law? The Attorney General's opinion saying that it was unconstitutional. So you had an Attorney General who had said publicly that the law was unconstitutional, and then had the duty and the important responsibility to make sure that those laws were protected and defended in the courts. Well, guess what? They didn't do a very good job. They lost in the federal district court, and then I took over as the Attorney General, and the Ninth Circuit actually ruled in favor of the people who were rejecting that law, who were fighting that law. But I decided that that was not good enough. So we decided to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court took our case and decided that they were going to decide finally whether it was unconstitutional to prevent boys from playing in girls' sports. And the case is going to be heard in January. And it's because of the work that the lawyers that I hired, and I decided that we created something. We're fighting for you, fighting for the laws that the legislature passed. Now, the ACLU decided that they want to dismiss that case because they know they're going to lose before the U.S. Supreme Court. So the person who sued the state of Idaho, who decided to keep Idaho in litigation for the last 5 years, is now trying to dismiss that case. And we just submitted a brief on Friday, just yesterday, telling the U.S. Supreme Court that they should not allow that person to dismiss the case because the case needs to be heard, and the U.S. Supreme Court has a duty now to decide whether girls can be protected and girls' sports can be protected. So we have fought litigation after litigation. You need to know that Idaho has a problem where our federal judiciary is very, very liberal. But yet we have one of the most conservative legislatures in the United States, and they keep passing conservative legislation. I get sued about 10 times a week by people that are trying to change the laws of the state of Idaho, people that are mad about the things that this legislature has passed. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, I got sued over the school choice law that passed in Idaho. And we have a bunch of outside groups, we have a bunch of liberal groups that are suing the state of Idaho, claiming that giving parents a tax break on their tax bills because they're sending their kids to private schools is actually unconstitutional. And we have 2 weeks to defend that case, to actually submit our submissions to the state Supreme Court, and we will fight. I believe it's constitutional what the legislature did, and I will fight with every fiber of my being to make sure that we keep that law in place. So I thank you for what you're doing. I thank you for being here. This is so important. I want to tell you that it's been a great honor. I've been a state representative, I've been a state U.S. congressman, and I've been your attorney general. And I've enjoyed each one of those jobs differently. There's been different types of jobs that I have. Actually, my favorite job was actually being a state legislator. I think being a state legislator is one of the coolest things that you can do because you're still a private citizen who can, I was in private practice. I had my own law firm, but I got the honor and privilege of going to the legislature for 3 months out of the year and be there full time. And then during the year, do things like this and connect with my citizens and my constituents. I love being in Congress. I think that was a tremendous honor to go back there. But the job where I think I've made the biggest difference is in this job. Every single day, I get to decide what I want to do. I don't have to ask 34 other people. I don't have to ask 70 other people. I don't have to ask 434 other people what I need to do in Congress. I get to wake up every morning and decide how I'm going to defend the rights and liberties of every citizen of Idaho. And I get to do it, and as long as it's constitutional, as long as it's legal, as long as it's ethical, I get to do those things, and you have given me that opportunity, so I thank you for that. I thank you for giving me that honor and that privilege. I just want you to know that we have changed the Office of Attorney General. We have done so many things, but one of the places where I make the biggest change is a place where I didn't even think we needed to make a change. The Office of Attorney General has a criminal division, and we have some limited jurisdiction over criminal law. And there's a few things that the legislature has asked the Attorney General to do. One of those areas is in ICAC, which is Internet Crimes Against Children. Has anybody ever heard that term before? ICAC. There's these horrible predators who are online looking at videos of children. And some of them are making the videos, some of them are just watching the videos, some of them are distributing those videos. And the Office of Attorney General has jurisdiction to make sure that those people are put in jail and that they're prosecuted. When I became Attorney General, I didn't realize that we had a problem in the Office of Attorney General. There was something going on where we were not prosecuting as many cases as we needed to, and we were not investigating as many cases as we needed to. So I became the Attorney General, and I decided immediately to hire a new commander for the ICAC unit. I hired a new division chief for criminal law, and I told him that we needed to make sure that we got rid of the backlog that we have of cases in the ICAC division. When I became the Attorney General, we had a 1,400 tip backlog. That was a backlog that was going to take months and months, if not years, for us to prosecute and to investigate. So I told my team to devise a plan to ensure that we could get to all those tips. We went to the legislature, we asked them for more money, we asked for more resources. They gave me the money and resources, and within 1 year of me being the Attorney General, we got rid of the entire backlog of cases that we had. But most importantly, we also decided to prosecute the cases internally instead of sending them out to the local prosecutors to prosecute. And I'm here to tell you that in the last year, we have investigated and prosecuted more cases than the previous 3 years combined. Which means that we have protected and saved more children. And I'll finish with this. One of the things that made me the most proud, when we made all these changes, we even got some pushbacks from the local prosecutors because they didn't like that we were taking the cases away from them. But one night I get a call from my criminal division chief, and he said that we had received a tip. Remember, we had 1,400 case backlog or 1,400 tip backlog. That meant that they weren't even seeing those tips right away. Says that one night we had received a tip. They were able to look at the tip, which we can now look at them within 24 hours. They were able to look at the tip within 24 hours. They realized that there was a young boy being molested, actually right here in the Magic Valley. They determined to get a warrant for investigating the case, and within 24 hours, we went to that person's home. We rescued the child, we arrested the predator, and we took every child of that home, and I'm very proud of that. So thank you for the opportunity to represent you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to be your Attorney General. Make sure you get out and vote, but remember, that's not the only thing you have to do. Give them money. They need your money so they can get out there and they can campaign. All these signs that you see over here, they're not free. They have to pay for those things. They have to make sure that they send mailers to their constituents. They have to tell their story of the great things that they're doing in the legislature. Make sure you tell your friends, and make sure that your friends tell their friends to make sure that we can keep each and every one of them in office. Thank you very much.